Have you ever noticed how people seem to change once they get a taste of power? Suddenly, that reasonable, empathetic person you knew becomes impulsive, defensive, and seems to lose their ability to see other points of view. It's a story as old as time. Power corrupts. But what if this isn't just a moral failing? What if power literally changes the way our brains work, pushing us into a state of cognitive shutdown? Today, we're diving into a groundbreaking model that explains exactly why power makes people act so differently. It's a concept called blackout, and it reveals a hidden battle happening inside our minds. To understand this, we need to look at three key brain networks. First, there's the Executive Control Network, or ECN. Think of it as the CEO of your brain. It handles planning, self-control, and rational decisions. Next is the Default Mode Network, or DMN. This is your brain's storyteller and social expert. It's responsible for empathy, self-reflection, and understanding others. These two networks, the ECN and DMN, work together to create what we call our reflective consciousness, our ability to think deeply, feel for others, and make wise choices. But there's a third player, the Salience Network, or SN. This is your brain's alarm system. Its job is to detect threats, risks, and anything new or unusual in your environment. It asks what makes you jump when you hear a loud noise or feel anxious in an uncertain situation. In a healthy, stable brain, the CEOFA Executive Control Network is in charge. It listens to the alarm system but keeps it in check, allowing the storyteller network to help us navigate social situations with grace. So, what does all of this have to do with power? The problem is that power acts as a dual stressor on the brain. It triggers both the threat and reward systems at the same time, creating a perfect storm for cognitive collapse. Let's break that down. First, the threat pathway. Being in a position of power is incredibly stressful. You're constantly under public scrutiny, facing uncertainty, and terrified of losing your status. This constant pressure floods your brain with stress hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine. These hormones are like kryptonite for your brain's CEO, the Executive Control Network. They directly suppress its function, making it harder to think clearly, plan ahead, and regulate your impulses. Your brain's alarm system, the Salience Network, goes into overdrive. Everything starts to feel like a threat. But at the exact same time, power also stimulates the reward pathway. It jacks up dopamine, the molecule of desire and anticipation, which makes you feel good and encourages risk. It also boosts testosterone, which is linked to dominance and aggression. This chemical cocktail creates what some researchers call an invincibility hallucination. You start to feel untouchable, like the rules don't apply to you. Your brain stops signaling errors as effectively, so you become less likely to notice when you've made a mistake. So you have this: on one hand, you're terrified and on high alert. On the other hand, you feel invincible and rewarded for your dominance. This combination is toxic. The alarm system, the Salience Network, becomes completely hyperactive. It hijacks the brain's resources, screaming threat, threat, threat at everything. In the face of this overwhelming alarm, the brain's CEO and storyteller networks, the ECN and DMN, effectively shut down. They get suppressed, decoupled, and taken offline. This is the state we call blackout. It's not a literal loss of consciousness, but a selective collapse of your higher-order thinking. Your reflective consciousness, your ability to empathize, reason, and self-reflect disappears. What's left? The raw, instinct-driven survival circuits. When the ECN and DMN are offline, behavior is no longer guided by logic or empathy. It's driven by fear, impulse, and the desire to maintain dominance. The observable results are exactly what we see in so many people with power: impulsive, short-sighted decisions, a stunning loss of empathy. Te Huskanti seem to understand or care about how their actions affect others. We see paranoia, a constant defensiveness, and a rigid, black-and-white way of thinking. They become morally blind, justifying actions they would have condemned before they had power. They are in a state of blackout. This state is incredibly difficult to escape from because it feeds on itself in what is called the ego-nashi fear loop, or EOF loop. It works like this. Power amplifies your ego, making you feel more important. A bigger ego leads to a stronger sense of ownership over your position, your ideas, and your status. This sense of ownership, in turn, amplifies your fear of losing it all. And what does fear do? It activates the alarm system, the Salience Network. The activated alarm system suppresses your rational and empathetic brain networks, which only makes your ego bigger and more fragile. And so the cycle repeats. Fear leads to more ownership, which leads to a bigger ego, which leads to even more fear. It's a vicious, self-sustaining cycle that keeps a person locked in the blackout state. This brings us to a new way of thinking about our primal instincts. Forget the old, simplistic idea of a reptilian brain located in a specific part of your head. Instead, we can talk about reptilian dominance. This isn't about a physical brain region. It's a functional state. It's what happens when the network dynamics in your brain shift, when the survival-oriented Salience Network dominates and suppresses the reflective, advanced cortical networks. This shift from reflective thinking to reactive survival mode is what drives authoritarian behavior, impulsive leadership, and a lack of empathy on a grand scale. It's not that a lizard brain takes over. It's that the entire brain network reconfigures itself to prioritize survival and dominance above all else. Now, here's where it gets truly scary. This blackout phenomenon doesn't just happen to individuals. It can happen to entire populations. When a whole society is exposed to chronic stressors like economic instability, intense political polarization, constant misinformation, and social division, the same neurobiological pattern can emerge on a mass scale. We call this mass blackout. In a state of mass blackout, the collective consciousness of a society begins to collapse. People's executive control networks are overloaded. Fear and uncertainty run rampant, causing the collective Salience Network to go haywire. The result is herd behavior, where critical thinking is abandoned in favor of following the crowd. Tribalism intensifies its us versus them on every issue. There's a widespread preference for a strong, authoritarian leader who promises simple solutions to complex problems. The population becomes prone to irrational collective choices. Swept up in waves of emotional contagion, a society in mass blackout loses its ability to self-reflect, empathize, and solve problems collaboratively. It becomes a collection of reactive, frightened individuals, easily manipulated and controlled. To better understand and perhaps even predict these collapses, researchers have proposed a formula called the Blackout Severity Index, or BSI. It's a conceptual equation, but it gives us a powerful way to think about this. The formula looks at the factors that push us into blackout, like the activation of our alarm system, our threat load from stress hormones, and our reward-driven dominance drive. Then, it divides that by the factors that protect us, the capacity of our executive control network and the integration of our empathy and self-reflection network. A high BSI score would indicate a severe shutdown of reflective consciousness, pointing to a person or a society at high risk for impulsive, destructive behavior. So what does this all mean for our understanding of consciousness itself? It suggests that our higher consciousness, our ability to reason, to feel empathy, to think about the future is not a given. It's a fragile, vulnerable state that depends on a delicate balance between our brain's networks. It can and will collapse under the weight of too much stress, too much reward, too much uncertainty, and too much emotional contagion. Maintaining our reflective consciousness requires a stable environment, regulated emotions, and a healthy, integrated brain. This is a sobering thought, but there is hope. If our own internal executive functions can be so easily hijacked, maybe we can build external supports to help us. This is where technology, and specifically AI, could play a fascinating role. Imagine an AI system designed to act as an external executive control network. This cognitive scaffolding could help leaders and organizations by monitoring for cognitive biases, flagging impulsive decisions, providing unbiased risk assessments, and de-escalating threat-driven thinking. It could act as a neutral third party, a digital prefrontal cortex, to help stabilize our own flawed and fragile human cognition under pressure. On a societal level, You could even imagine a civilization BIOS that monitors the collective being. It could detect the early warning signs of mass blackout, measure the emotional volatility in public discourse, and help policymakers regulate the systems that are generating overwhelming threat and division. This isn't about AI taking over. It is about using technology to support our own best thinking and protect ourselves from our own worst instincts. In the end, the model of blackout gives us a powerful new lens through which to view the world. The destructive and irrational behavior we often see in letters and in society at large may not be a simple failure of character. It may be a predictable neurobiological consequence of a brain pushed beyond its limits. The combination of power, stress, and reward creates a perfect storm that inverts the brain's natural hierarchy, leading to a shutdown of our most human qualities: empathy, reason, and self-awareness. To preserve our reflective consciousness, both as individuals and as a civilization, we must learn to manage threat, regulate our drive for dominance, and build systems that support, rather than suppress, our better angels. Thanks for watching. If this idea blew your mind, hit that subscribe button and share this video. Let's get this conversation started. See you next time.